Kvela source and all of these kinds of things.
Kvela
Obviously,
source?
John Q source.
The Q source is consensus, and it is posited, as Dr. John Kloppenberg says in his book, as a logical necessity that follows from the synoptic problem. So Q is accepted by 95% of Jesus scholars.
Okay. Clearly, John is also relying on the synoptic gospels. I mean, I would say...
What's the evidence for that?
He's offering flourishes to these stories.
What's the evidence? Okay, so
you
haven't told me why John relies on...
Hold on. You spoke for a little while.
Yeah, but you're not substantiating your claims. You're just uttering things and not substantiating anything.
I'm not, and that's a bit rude.
Let's let him answer without interruption, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Throughout the ancient world and throughout the world today, there is a tradition of mimesis. You could think of that as copying. And there's great works that you look to. You want to bring the structure of the story to a new work, maybe change the characters. You want to bring in some old tropes from older works and make them sing in this new age. I have no doubt. I agree with the scholarly consensus that Mark most likely came first. He inspired Luke and Matthew, and in my mind, I can't prove this for certain. In all likelihood, the writer of John read the synoptic gospels. Maybe there were other traditions or other sources that he read. But you are claiming that because this story is reiterated multiple times, that makes it more and more true. The fact is, if you take something like comic books in the 20th century, Krypton, that there's the Superman, the original source, the drawings by Schuster, and I'm forgetting the other guy's name. And then later on in the radio version of Superman, they bring in Krypton or kryptonite, and then later on he gets a dog in the 1950s and so on. But see, they're all these different sources, and they're all looking at the same figure. So this means that Superman must exist, or Clark Kent must exist. It doesn't work that way at all. It indicates that many different authors and writers are engaging in a mimetic tradition with other sources. John is clearly inspired by Euripides, among other things, and his version of the Bacchae, and the structure of that story as it's relayed in John's Gospel, which is the best one. He's learning from the best. So you're not proving that there's that there's a real Jesus Christ who walked on the face of the earth and walked on water. You're proving that there are many artists sort of doing their own kind of spin on a material, whether the synoptic gospels are taking it all from Mark, whether John is looking at another source or looking at Mark, which is what I would find most plausible. It doesn't matter. They're all sort of working on these different stories. Over my lifetime, there's been like 3 or 4 Superman movies, and they have a lot of similarities. There's sort of a key blueprint. There's been 25 James Bond movies. They're all sort of the same. They all follow a blueprint, and they're all sort of referencing one another. None of that means that James Bond is a real man. And so, no, if I would be totally convinced that Jesus was real, if we could authenticate, I don't know, some sort of diary entry, a legal document, some sort of archaeological evidence, I'm not sure what that would be. But the problem with using the Gospels as a source is that these are brilliant, inspiring. I say this as a sort of atheist, Apollonian, and so on. I love the Gospel of John. It is a brilliant piece of work. I am moved every time I read these Gospels. Their symbolic coherence, their depth is actually amazing. I understand why they are read 2,000 years later. I think the same thing about Euripides and the Bacchae. I think the same thing about Oedipus Rex. Think the same thing about Hamlet 500 or 400 years later. They're great works of art that are taking inspiration from other artists, and they're creating a magical literary figure that captures the imagination. The figures that have captured the imagination, at least from the ancient world, are all sort of fictional.
Are you going to keep going on forever, brother?
Muhammad, etc. Because they are larger than life. They can turn water into wine. They can walk on water. They can rise from the dead. They can say things. They can engage in philosophy that was truly mind-blowing for people in the ancient world. That's why they're great, because they're literature.